episode 21. We're in full force, except Mike's throat is kind of raspy. He thinks he's been sick for a week, but the reality is I punched him in the throat because he didn't respond to my text fast enough.
But
so,
why did you text him if he was in front of you?
Doesn't make sense. So guys, we're going to start with guard pull for self-defense. It gets a bad rap, right? Everybody says you can't pull guard for self-defense. Well, let me show you how. So first with self-defense, I get my grips, I pull guard, and pow! And that's it. Fight over, guys. Self-defense. Guard pull for self-defense. Don't underestimate guard pulling. In all seriousness, though, let's get to the topic. So I'm going to actually go over two techniques. I don't use a lot of lapel chokes. Two reasons for it. One is I want to make sure, like my game is very similar Ghee or NoGi, but I will use the Ghee. Second reason, both of my wrists are pretty bad. And I taught this repeatedly for 1 week, and then by Friday last week, I could barely brush my teeth. It actually hurt brushing my teeth. So, but these are good, both good techniques, but I actually have a bigger point to make. So first one is Canto Choke, all right? So basically, Enrique's in my guard. I get a grip up on the opposite side, and it's kind of fairly high up. It doesn't have to be super high up. Thumb in, and then I just bring my leg over. I'm pulling down and extending my arm, okay? So let's look at it again. So Enrique's in my guard. I just get your normal. Normally in the guard, I would try to get cross collar if I can, or this grip just to keep his posture down. If I'm keeping his posture down, I want to be just a little bit deeper. I don't want to go all the way back like behind his neck. I want to go kind of to the side. Now, as I'm pivoting, my leg comes on top. I back heel and start to straighten out my right leg, okay? So it's Canto Choke off Flavio Canto, who's, I believe, Brazilian judoka, like internationally well-renowned, but also a BJJ guy. Very effective. And the other one is, I don't know what to call it. Renzo showed me this one maybe 25 years ago, and it's really, really good. It's highly effective from side control. So a lot of times when I get side control with the Ghee, it's easy to get your grip. Thumb in, same grip, and I just bring my leg over. I stay sitting out. I start to draw his head back, but I also start to straighten out my arm. And it's a really good choke to try, and the reason for that is it's a throwaway submission. So sometimes when you go for submission, if you fail with that submission, you have nothing. A lot of times you give up position, the guy passes your guard or something like this. In this case, it doesn't matter, even if the submission fails. So back down, Enrique, please. So if the submission fails and I can't get it, I just basically go back into other things. So it's a throwaway submission in a sense that failure does not cost you anything. And it's almost, that hand is almost always there. So I advocate taking that choke. I don't know what you'd call it. It's similar to Canto, but maybe we could call it reverse Canto Choke, whatever you guys want to call it. I really don't care. It's highly effective, but I want to get to a point that is kind of an important thing that a lot of people, when they go through jiu-jitsu, they get very frustrated, and myself included, with not being able to comprehend or adopt techniques fast enough. Sometimes it just doesn't make sense. So, with the one from top side control, I've been using this choke for more than 20 years. Okay? You would think that for me to adopt the Canto Choke, which is basically a very similar thing, but from the guard, that it would be a breeze. That'd be logical. However, and with the Canto Choke, I became aware of it probably 10, 12 years ago. Gregor Gracie nailed me with it in training. It's like, oh yeah, this is what I did. I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's simple. Man, I'm going to incorporate it into my game. I didn't. Even though it's very simple, the grip is simple. You just bring the leg over. It just did not make sense to me for literally for 10, 12 years. It just did not make sense to me. It just might somehow, even though it's very simple, sometimes there's very complex movement, very complex sequences. This is not. This is a simple one. It did not make sense to me, despite the fact that the one from top side control, which is very similar that Renzo showed me maybe 25 years ago, maybe, probably 20, 22, 25 years ago, made perfect sense to me and I've been using. But I could not incorporate the other one in, even though they're similar, and you could argue that if you know one, you should know the other one. So guys, don't feel bad, because the learning process, especially, there's a lot of people in jiu-jitsu that have ADHD and ADD and whatever other acronyms and things you can think of. Sometimes your brain works in a different way from sort of the straight line, and sometimes you got to take a circuitous, right, well, long-winded way to get there. That's what I'm saying. So guys, don't necessarily feel bad about it. Same thing, Tarka Plata. I know that it could be useful for my style of game, the way I play a lot of the Ude Gatame. Again, I've been aware of it for a long time. It just does not make sense. It's only now starting to make sense to me that it's a possible option. It's not my go-to. It's not my high percentage. It's, I see it usually by the time I see it, it's too late. I go, let's backtrack and see if what I could have done. So guys, don't feel bad. I know that if you're training consistently, your game is getting better. The question is, at what rate, and try to incorporate things that are ancillary to your game. And sometimes, even if it's ancillary, sometimes you have to age it. It's like fine wine. So with the Canto Choke, I had to age it like a fine wine. I had to put it on the shelf and trot it out every so often, and you'd be surprised how many times that happens. Mike, what do we got? You got your lozenge? Don't make me punch you in the throat again.
Jam Baseball is asking, do you mean that you kept trying it and it kept failing? Part of my problem is I only think of it after the fact.
Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't even see it. I saw it too late. And then, it's exactly right. You sort of become aware of something. First of all, when you sort of incorporate it into a new technique, and guys, when I see something that I think could be ancillary to my game, I will watch a sequence. I've watched matches that are like watching paint dry, 2 black belts, 10 minutes long, for literally 2 seconds of action that would be interesting that I could pick something up. So sometimes you become aware of something, but you can't quite comprehend which, maybe you can, I could not. Exactly what the grip is. It's a simple grip, and I'm thinking like, oh, I know there was something there, but I didn't quite know what it was, but it just sort of in the back of my head bothered me. 2 months later, same thing happened again. It's like, oh, is there something there? Can you go back? Oh, I think I have this, play around with it, but we're training. It's like, I play around with it for 30 seconds. If it's not hitting me, I just move on. And like literally some of these things will take years for me to figure out exactly, though it's simple. I guess, yeah, if I say, ooh, I like this, I'm going to play around with it for 20 minutes. Yes, I will incorporate it. But it has to be something that it's like, oh man, I need this. If it's something that just, it's not that important to me, I will try to incorporate things, but I don't assign that as much importance as some of the things that are really, really important today. Today, like for example, I've been playing with this in the water, Ude Gatame sort of follow-up where the guy kind of bends his arm and is standing on his legs. So it leads to sort of a Tarka Plata, but at the same time, even if I cannot get that, it leads to a sweep, which is what I need, because rather than start to be picked apart from that defense, especially against a guy that's slightly stronger than me. Yeah, I'm talking to that guy in the corner.
And Dolphus is asking, Mr. Fox, can you show a no-gi takedown, please?
No Ghee, it's ski day. Shit, Mike. I blame Mike. Let me
Don't punch him
punch
again,
you in the
Fox.
throat. Maybe
Yeah, don't punch him again.
maybe you know sometimes when things are broken and you punch it again, it gets fixed.
Like an old
Mike, come
TV.
over here.
Like an old TV.
So this is what I've been. Yeah, I've been on this kick for a while. So let's just do this. Live questions get priority. So I actually like sort of the idea of going one direction, but if the guy resists, go in the opposite direction. So a lot of times when I'm standing, I like to get an underhook. Now pay attention to this because this is very important. Right now Enrique's blocking me with his forearm. So I'm looking to place my head and slip my shoulder. This is very important. Once I have the underhook, it doesn't matter whether I have a bolt cutter, but I usually control the head. Now, if Enrique is somewhat upright, I'm gonna try to hit him with a knee tap. All right, so that's sort of what I'm trying to hit him with. One of two. So once I get to that underhook, one of two things. So now he's keeping his legs too far. All right. In which case now I cannot get to his legs. So what I'll do is I'll post and pull Ude Gatame. A lot of times either the guy taps or collapses, and I wind up with the modified Americana. Third one, which is probably also very likely. So if you have a guy with a good base, and I kind of try to go, so when if he starts to keep the legs away, like I cannot get to them, he's blocking, I will pull. But if it's a little bit closer, I just shove him forward, and I'll start to take his back. So you have kind of three options depending on his reaction. And so this is my favorite go-to takedown right now, because I have three different ways to get to a dominant position depending on his reaction. And you know, I train with a lot of high-level guys, so you cannot, you know, it's hard to expect like a beautiful takedown.
And Adolfo Ferrando is asking, Fox, how do you deal with the guy who plays sit-up shin to shin? I'm never sure how to enter it, and when they get it, how do you deal with it?
We've covered that, so I'm sure it's already. This is my bad knee, so let's try to go on my good knee. Don't make me pull my guard again for self-defense. So
I'm here.
oh, we're doing this. All right, let me punch you in the throat. So it's actually. If I can get his head to the outside, you could step to the back, okay? But that's a tall order. So a lot of times you can sort of swim. It depends if he does not have enough tension. But let's assume he does it well. So what I'll do is I'll back step, and I try to sit on his shoulder. From here, I will actually connect my hands. And again, I've been playing with this for a while. It works. It's pretty effective. I don't know what I would call that choke. It's kind of a variation on the buggy choke, mousetrap, call it whatever you want. But there's a lot of good stuff coming out of that interplay between, rather than using your legs or your arms, combining the two that are available, meaning a leg and an arm, or two arms and a leg. So again, sometimes you can just sort of pummel through or attack the head depending how he's sitting up. So if I can get a good grip over the head, in this case, I will drive my hips forward. You know, that's another good possible way to beat a shin to shin guard. It highly depends. So as he's, you know, of course I try to keep him But a lot of times, if I cannot, I will just backstep. And I'm trying to, I know I'm going down, connecting my hands, and I'm going to use my leg to cause the choke. And obviously, with the gi, I would be grabbing the gi. How did the gi session get hijacked?
And Eugene is asking, what are the main differences between your gi and no gi passing?
They're very similar. With the gi, I have to be mindful of the guy getting the collar grips. So with the Ghee Guard passing, yeah, once he gets a grip, why are you progressing while I'm explaining things? So once he gets a grip, I generally tend not to strip, because if I strip, Enriquez is now starting to move on into something else. So generally speaking, I'm trying to prevent him from getting grip literally just a split second past me. So so now I got mine. I will use the collar to control his posture to some extent. So if I can make him sit up a little bit. Once I pass, even though my hand is on the wrong side, I use that hand and the collar to staple him to the ground and possibly attack. So again, it's obviously the grips. You also have, he can have the pant leg grips. So I usually, guys, when you pass it with the gi, yeah, this is already bad. Strip the grips, get a position that you're sort of okay with, and move. Like I said, I'm not here, and once he gets the grips, I strip. Yeah, now I'm reacting I'm off balance, I'm flopping over, he's attacking. So I don't want to get to that point. So generally speaking, once I commit, I'm going to come in. I know once I'm coming in, he's getting his grip, so I just want to make sure my grip is better than his. I will use either the collar or behind the head to staple him. That's the difference. Usually without the gi, I will either wrap guillotine instead, or I try to get an underhook. So with the gi, I will tend to use the lapel a little bit more, as opposed to sort of trying to get an underhook. That's probably the major difference. But most important thing when you're passing the guard in the gi is don't let the guy on the bottom get dominant grips, because once, people sometimes, this is kind of a very common mistake people make, and I've made it myself, where you believe that, say you're a brown belt, you're going with a blue belt, you believe there's a big skill gap, and there is. So there's a big skill difference. Right now, if I start to move, chances are he's going to be done soon. But big skill difference. Just progress slowly. Yeah, that skill gap is starting to go out the window because I just let somebody move too far forward. It used to frustrate the hell out of me when I was a brown belt, because I would I should be able to do better against this guy. Almost like you start to think you have some magical powers, because you think the skill gap is such that no matter what happens, you should be able to eliminate that threat and neutralize it and then submit them. The point is, once you get to, once you let somebody advance far along, that position kind of neutralized the skill gap. And now you start to move, and now it's too late. And guys, the reason I'm explaining this to you is because I made the same mistake. I'd be like, man, I suck. Why did I thought I was so much better than that. Yeah, I was. But like I said, it's sort of like, just go. You're like, yeah, okay, we're just going to play. Okay, I'm just going to play. Okay, now I'm going to try to arm lock you. Go ahead, just do whatever you... oh, crap. Now it's too late. Okay? So understand that skill gap makes a difference when you're starting from the same point. It's sort of like, you're a very fast runner, and you're doing 100 meters, 100 yards. if you're very fast, but you start the race when the guy's at 90 and he has 10 left, no matter how slow that guy is, he's going to beat you. So kind of keep that in mind. That's a very important point to make, because I think especially people that are trying to be technical, they get into their own head and they start to almost think. And I was one of those guys. It's like, man, I'm working to only technique, but technique conquers all, as John says. But yeah, but there's got to be something behind it too. Now it's not just like you put yourself in a deep hole and let the guy pour water on you, and then like, okay, now I'm going to come out and submit him. It's too late now.
And one last question before we close out. Diego de la Garza is asking, can you show us your footwork for when you're passing someone who's sitting and doesn't have any grips?
Oh, yeah, that's the other thing. If you're on the bottom, get your grips. If you don't get your grips. Usually when I pass guard, and it's the same thing, gi, no-gi. I try to split my job. With the good guys, it's hard to get past both legs. It's not impossible. But usually I just basically assume that I just make it in. You don't have any grips yet. So usually I'll split them in half, meaning that basically I just go and step in deep between their legs. So if they don't have any grips, I step in, and a lot of times from here I will just go and knee cut pass. And as you can see, Enrique has a very bad underhook, which I can neutralize with my elbow. So I tend to, when the guy doesn't have grips, that's a perfect example of moving, because he's basically handicapping himself significantly. When you're on the bottom, guys, when you want to have an aggressive guard, you got to get grips. 3 to 4 right off the bat. You get 3 to 4 grips, you're off to a good start to start either off balancing, possibly threatening a submission, or getting a submission. He thwarts it, now you're on to a sweep. And just like that, we're out of time. All right, guys, I will see you next week before my heavy travel schedule starts. For episode 22, like, subscribe, share.
Tell your friends.
Tell your friends.
Members, your coaches.
And I look forward to seeing you, some of you guys in person when I start my traveling. See you next week.